It's astonishing how this kind of politician, very much in the ascendancy at the moment.
This is James O Brien, a left-leaning political commentator on LBC Radio station. He has been rather infuriated by resistance to the Windfall Tax on oil companies, which is a one-time tax targeted on companies who made unexpected profits in circumstances that they were not responsible for, such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Those pesky Tories. How dare they oppose our enlightened way of thinking?
It's astonishing how this kind of politician is perfectly comfortable standing up, for example, in the House of Commons and telling people that they don't need food banks, they just need cookery lessons, or popping up on the telly telling Kay Burley that that people just need to get a better paid job or work extra hours.
Good to know James has no qualms about giving any context. The government minister talking to Kay Burley was talking about how certain people could work more hours or change jobs within the long term, and how this would depend on certain people. These are tough times. Everyone needs to do all they can, even with government assistance. And the Tory MP Lee Anderson in his constituency was talking about teaching homeless people in food banks how to budget, such as cooking meals under 30 pence a day from scratch. The MP has concerns about the lack of budgeting and cooking skills in the newer generations. You can check sources in the description for context.
So they'll tell you how to live your life. They'll tell you what you need to do. But they are absolutely terrified of telling companies that are shelling it, companies that are raking in the kind of sums that look like telephone numbers to normal people. They're perfectly, supremely comfortable telling some poor soul over there who's got an indoor coat that they should have cookery lessons or find a better job or work extra hours, or use the value range of food. So just think for a minute. We've stumbled across something here again, haven't we?
This may be hard to believe, but oil companies need these high profits, as they usually go through periods of high profits and losses, which I will elaborate on later. Also, they are not forcing people to cook or get a better job, but advising them to make their lives better, in contrast to the government force required for a windfall tax.
That's it, isn't it? That's the dichotomy at the heart of these ideologies. So what is acceptable behaviour? Acceptable behaviour is telling people who can't afford to feed themselves that they should perhaps consider buying value range products in their local supermarket, finding a better job, working extra hours, or taking some cookery lessons, because there's not really any such thing as poverty, and if there is, you deserve it. Right? You deserve to be poor. It's your own fault for being thick, for not knowing about the value range food, for not knowing how to cook, how to roast a chicken, for not having the wherewithal to realise that you can just walk out the door now and get a much better paid job than the one you've currently got before you can say, what a load of cobblers.
We believe poverty exists, James. We do, however, believe that if you work hard and think smart, you can get out of poverty over time. It isn't easy, but it is effective.
Right, that is the ideology, because that goes hand in hand with the argument that here's a company making several gazillion pounds in profit, largely as a result of the increase in wholesale energy prices. They're just harvesting it. They're just shoveling money into the coffers of shareholders.
These profits are large, but they aren't harvesting it, and it won't just go into shareholders. Why? Because the oil industry is extremely volatile, especially with prices. The sector is known to have long-term price increases and decreases, with significant economic booms and slumps. This leads to periods such as now, with the gazillion trillion dollars you whine about, and the times where BP faced a £4.2 billion loss in the UK due to the pandemic, while Shell faced a global loss of £14.7 billion. To deal with these massive losses, the oil companies save up during the boom years, which will be later used to finance a business during their loss years. As these profits actually matter, a tax on these profits can lower investment. For example, the US 1980 windfall tax was estimated to have lowered production by 3 to 6%. Oil companies would need these windfall profits to recoup their massive losses gained during the pandemic, as well as invest to improve supply chains and support a sustainable energy transition.
But we can't touch them. We absolutely can't go near them. Look, if we go near them, they might move. Do you remember when Paul Daniels, the late magician, and various other people that said that if Labour get in, I'm going to emigrate? None of them ever did, as far as I'm aware. This is similar, isn't it?
While certain individuals, like Paul Daniels, didn't leave after Labour's 1997 victory, keep in mind that Tony Blair's faction that led Labour at the time was significantly more moderate. Also, businesses would leave if more radical and permanent policies were implemented. Regardless, they don't have to leave for it to be a problem. Investment may instead decline, like with the 1980s American Windfall Tax, but even if the effect is small, it is probably because the UK cuts too much to oil companies. Officially, these companies are taxed at a higher corporation rate at 30% rather than the average 19%, along with a 10% supplement charge added. But major oil companies bypass this by spending money on decommissioning costs to cancel out any profit. They also received £3.7 billion in subsidies over a 4-year period. You want energy companies to pay a higher tax rate, but even when that happens, they avoid it due to overcomplicated tax systems. James, who are being hustled by these energy companies.
You sort of, I don't know whether it's naivety, but I saw one tweet yesterday as if it was a gotcha. Labour admit in the House of Commons that a windfall tax would only raise about £120 per household. As if that were a gotcha. And again, I thought of indoor coats. It was a teacher's wife, if you remember, in Cromer, who just rang in very matter-of-factly to explain that her and the kids wear indoor coats so that when they go outside, they feel the benefit of their bigger coats. They need to wear a coat inside to keep warm, but if they wore the same coat outside, then it wouldn't provide as much protection against the cold as they need or as they would like. So they've got indoor coats and then they stick another coat on when they go outside. In Britain, in 2022, in a home where the breadwinner is a teacher. Indoor coats.
That is quite sad, but the windfall tax is not the solution since it may further increase prices. Offshore Energy UK has argued that consumers' annual heating bills will rise by £700 due to falling investment and declining oil stocks resulting from a windfall tax, which apparently outweighs the revenue raised. Now this group seems pretty right-leaning, due to being linked with the Taxpayers Alliance. And I haven't looked into how much heating bills will actually rise, but we need to realise that the higher tax on energy companies may increase gas prices so much that it will surpass any proposed government transfer payments.
Just like the immigration debate all over again, and that is where, almost as if I planned it, this introduction ends, because it began with a bloke saying, "Oh, I'm a free marketeer, but obviously if my sector needs help from the government, then the government should jolly well give it immediately, and then we're not in favour of it at all. So I'm in favour of a free market until my sector needs help, and then I think it should get help from the government."
Then maybe we should stop subsidies such as the £3.7 billion to oil companies. There is also the £9.9 billion in tax reliefs, which I don't count as a subsidy. But even then, I agree that the UK system is too overly generous to oil companies. Add in the subsidies, and BP and Shell get more from the government than they paid in. We need to stop these subsidies towards decommissioning costs, as well as lower the corporation tax from 40% to normal levels, so these energy companies are not discouraged to invest in the UK. These people and companies may be hypocrites, but the government is complicit through intervention.
So what are the ideological reasons behind simply, profit is clean money. It's clear money. You could say we would reinvest it in R&D, but the head of BP has said actually we wouldn't have done that. It goes into the pockets of shareholders. That's all.
I haven't found anything where BP said they don't invest and just give it to shareholders, but it appears that James is confused with BP saying that the windfall tax won't affect their investment plans. If any of you did find anything to what James was talking about, please link in the comment section below. Now with this, you may say the windfall tax won't affect investment, but this is really mixed, since Shell is actually concerned that the uncertainty of the tax threatens North Sea oil investments and their developments in low carbon energies. That's it for now, but I have a treat for next week where I respond to multiple people about whether high-skilled immigration is responsible for high-achieving outcomes for Asian Americans. And if you want to know more about the windfall tax, then check out my other 2 videos about it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a like and comment as it really helps my video in the YouTube algorithm. And if you like economics and political commentary, consider subscribing. Maybe follow me on my Twitter, and see you later.